You guys wouldn't know this, but this is a second take after being 20 minutes into our discussion. But you are watching the Viral Volley Podcast or listening in on iTunes or other podcasting software. We've got our three panelists on board. We'll reveal them as we are in our quarantine episode while we are here in the pandemic. But we had a lot of news this week, but let's meet our panelists here. First, we'll go from George Mason University, head coach Jay Hosick. And then over there on, well, what is my right would be Boba Fett in Romeo, Illinois, or head coach of Lewis University, Dan Friend, with those rockin' Oakleys, looking for that sponsorship when he goes pro. And then we have special guest and men's volleyball almanac, Vinnie Lopes of Off the Block. Thanks for joining me this morning, guys. And I am Rob on the mic. Thanks for being here this morning, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hey,
I had so many good hot takes in that non-recorded part. It was some of my best work ever.
Hey, we're meeting today because a few things have come out, and we wanted to talk about them. We've got the AVCA All-America teams, as well as Vinnie Lopes National Awards at Off the Block. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity to come together to talk about some of the selections of the AVCA and also project who the national awards are, at least in our own opinions this week, because it's an exciting time. This would have been the week of the starting of the conference tournaments. At least I know I was supposed to be working the Big West tournament on the men's side at the Brennan Men's Center and the Pac-12 beach tournament at UCLA's Mapes Beach. And I'm sure you guys would have been somewhere as well. So I'm in a little grieving process here. So this is a good way to share my feelings and be alone together, the hashtag, you know. So, thanks for joining me this morning, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell that you guys aren't going to be as funny during the second take, but, you know, I get it. I'll fall on the sword on that one. So I'll ask this question again because we had some great discussion. But obviously the AVCA All-America team has come out, but I wanted to talk about the honorable mentions. Did you feel like that was a good team? What do you think about that team where names left off? And what did you think about the process of having those particular individuals named there?
I'll go first. You know, I think there's a couple things that stick out to me. One is that we're voting on All-Americans that are up to that point in the season, and it was only halfway done. There was still a long way to go. You know, Big West Conference didn't even get off the ground, really. So you had a lot of competition that probably could have shaped some things in a different direction. But
3 matches, let's make conference play, Jay.
Yeah, right. So, you know, and I've been on that committee before. It's not easy. You're dealing with finite or, you know, minute little numbers here and there and changes that can make all the difference in the world. And everybody's fighting for their guys or fighting for their conference. And so, and I'm sure Dan will enlighten us as to maybe how that all went this year. But, you know, the two names that stick out to me that were surprising is George Human and Brett Wildman not being on the first or second team. And, you know, I'm not trying to argue that they should be first team or they should be second, but they were an honorable mention, and those guys were really good. And so, you know, I know the committee, they argue, they fight, they discuss, they do all those things, and in the end of it all, you just go, hey, this is what it is, and they all agree and they move forward. And so, you know, it's gonna let some people, you know, have some arguments when they're with their friends having a couple cold frosty pops over the days to come, but. You know what? That's part of volleyball. It's part of the whole fun. I love it all. It's all good.
Yeah, I think, you know, certainly I'm wearing a couple different hats. And this was probably the most challenging, you know, selection committee in terms of this where we're at. You know what I mean? And I've been part of this for, you know, 10, 15 years. And so, and our committee worked hard. I mean, it was a 3-hour phone call in terms of figuring out, you know, some of the best decisions and who placed where, and there were so many talented guys. And, you know, we talk about this, and I think some guys might have, if we play out the full season, you'll see some guys rise up. You'll see some guys fall down because of the numbers and how they lay out. But we were where we were at. And so we had to go by kind of some of those numbers and work through some of that. And I think there's certainly some guys that could move up from honorable mention to the second team. The second team could have gone down. There's some honorable mentions not in honorable mentions that probably – could have got up into there, do you know what I mean, in terms of that stuff. And so, but the committee worked hard and did a really nice job. And I certainly think those first team guys were certainly nailed in terms of some of that stuff, and they would have been where they needed to be towards the end of that stuff and everything. And, but lots of talent. I think the unique piece is, all these pieces that might return. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, seniors getting an extra year and all the things that kind of go along with that. And so, like I said before, it'll be the year of the super teams. And that's kind of my phrase. And we're going to have some high-level volleyball going into next year with some of these pieces and guys getting better for sure.
So one of the things that fans really should keep in mind when they are looking at this is you have to remember there is a finite amount of players on the first and second team, only 10 per. So if you're a fan saying, man, this person should have gone, you have to think, okay, well, who was this person better than? So they can't just add, 20 people on the second team. The other thing also I always like to emphasize during award season is there's no massive conspiracy theory, let's play. I know everyone loves a conspiracy theory, but there's no Zapruder film of, Dan Friend, getting money under a park bench, somewhere. But I mean, it just doesn't happen. It's coaches coming together trying to make really difficult decisions. Looking at the honorable mention list, two names that, jump out to me, I'm glad they got recognition. One is Camden Gianni, just the story of this kid, having heart surgery last year, coming back, being an absolute stud, getting honorable mention, was a freshman All-American. Really glad to see him just be back on the court, and I'm excited to see what happens next. And then the other one, I was glad to see was Evan Corey. This was an independent player. Lincoln Memorial does not have a conference affiliation, so sometimes it's really easy for those players to get overlooked. But I really credit the committee at looking at the job that Evan Corey did both offensively, defensively, putting up fantastic numbers against really good teams. Lincoln Memorial had a very competitive schedule this year, and this is one of the first times ever an independent player has gotten an All-American accolade, and it's well-deserved for Evan Corey. This is a kid who has a great future ahead of him professionally.
Yeah, how cool is it that Evan Corey makes that list, and how cool is it that Angelos Mandelaris from Barton makes the second team? Yeah. I mean, those are two teams that people may have not given much credit to over the course of the last few years. But, we were talking about it back in the day with the Net Live, when they would make fun of those teams for their names. Those teams are now beating teams. And if you would have talked to the USC Hawks 5 or 10 years ago, they would have bet the farm that they would have never lost to a team from the Conference Carolinas. Well, you know what? I got a farm. Anybody want to buy it, you let me know, because Barton beat USC this year in 3.
Yeah. Well, and once again, I want to credit the committee also, just to go off this again when we talk about Mandelaris. Even if you discredit some of his numbers in Conference Carolina play, because, the conference isn't as good yet as the MPSF or the MEVA. It's growing, but, reality is. But you look at the numbers they put up in non-conference play, he had 25 kills in a 3-game victory against Loyola. Loyola, a little bit of a down year because of injuries and everything, but that's a really strong program. So he was putting up solid numbers. And once again, Barton, they finished the season undefeated in Conference Carolina play, we're really rolling towards another NCAA tournament appearance.
I just wanted to add, you mentioned Evan Corey and all those conferences that we were saying weren't as competitive years ago on the Net Live, and they are putting up some solid talent. And Evan Corey is not only talented indoors, but also on the beach. And he can play both kinds of ball. And he's definitely a banger. Referred to him as the Bayou Bomber or the Cajun Crusher, which I think he really appreciated on my Instagram post. But he's shown up on so many highlight reels. I couldn't help but put him on there, from the beach tournaments, the AVPs last summer to his indoor this 2020 season. So, hats off to Evan Corey. Dan made mention of the super teams, and one big announcement that was discovered yesterday was UC Santa Barbara. Their 4 guys are coming back, and that's going to be an interesting team for 2021. And I'm referring to Randy DeWeese. Let's see, Roy, is it Rory? McFarland, yes. And then, we got DeWeese, McFarland, and Keenan Sanders. And who am I forgetting? What's the one name?
That would be
Casey McGarry.
McGarry, their setter. So, hey, yes, me not wasting any time. I know the Hawaiian guys are waiting for announcement of their athletic director. You got guys shifting over, potentially showing up in the NCAA portal, I've been hearing. And it'll be an interesting year for volleyball.
Yeah.
It will be. And one thing I do want to just remind fans of and everything during this time, look, this is a difficult time. These are 22 or 21, 22-year-old kids making some big decisions during a pandemic. Let's make sure as the volleyball community, we're giving them their space, an opportunity to make decisions, and just know they're making the best decisions for them, regardless of what those decisions are.
Yeah, good call there, Vinnie.
Certainly challenging. I think all those guys were kind of facing, because we got a couple guys and we don't know yet, but I think they're all facing those, hey, do I go play pro and make some money, or, am I going into my workforce because I have a job lined up, or, they're weighing all these decisions, and Vinnie hits it. It's some life stuff going on. And so it's like, hey, what's the makeup of the pro stuff in Europe? Who loses sponsors, who doesn't? So do I want to wait a year to landscape that and stay if I can? But then at the same time, is the school that I'm going to investing money to help those programs? Because this is probably a topic of conversation we'll get into, but who knows the landscape as we move forward with some of this, do you know what I mean, in terms of that? And so, it'll be certainly interesting how this plays out over the next few months for all these programs with seniors and transfers and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the two things that ring home for me is one, the universities all would love to have these kids back. I don't think any program would ever turn down a 4-year or 5-year player for them. But at the same time, with the universities taking a hit like they are with admissions, that could be a real challenge because you just don't know if they're even going to have the money to give back any of the scholarship money that they were already awarded. And that's a big challenge. And the second one, I think Dan touched upon it with the pro teams overseas. A lot of these guys want to play on the national team. And going this year would have been a challenge. And getting a year of pro underneath their belt and then going into the gym next summer would have been a little bit of a better time because now you're at the beginning of a new quad. There's nothing that's really set in stone. Spraw has shown that he likes that first year or two to be a lot of young guys to see who can work things out. Well, now the national team isn't going to be doing that until the following year. So now you're pushing everything back even further. So, there's a lot of question marks with these guys. And, whether they come back or not, if they do, it's going to be a lot of fun next year. I know everybody's gyms are going to be highly competitive. That part's really cool. The matches are going to be really fun to be a part of because it's just going to be better volleyball. But, yeah, I agree with Vinnie. Give these kids some space and let them make these decisions because these are pretty life impactful for sure.
Yeah. Well, next question regarding the honorable mention team is, do any of you feel that there are any other names that could have been on that list just off the top of your head?
I'm going to stay away. You'll let you guys kind of.
I get it, Dan. I get it.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a couple of guys, obviously, that maybe I could discuss. But I think, to be honest with you, regardless of going into that, I'm just going to say I know it's tough. I know the coaches all did the best they could, and I'll leave those discussions up for the volley talkers of the world that want to, talk about their favorite programs.
The trollers.
Yeah, the trollers. By the way, I got a farm. Still putting that out there. I got a farm.
Nice.
How about you, Vinnie?
No, I once again, this is difficult. I mean, it is a challenging thing to vote on these. I think one of the great things that I love seeing on this is really the recognition of some players who did all the little things that really impacted their team. And I'll give you an example. Zach Eschenberg, you talked to Coach Olmstead. This was a kid who made such a big difference for that BYU team this season. His passing capability, being able to terminate in one-on-one situations when so much attention was being paid on Gabby. The fact that, you recognize people like that, it just speaks how in depth the committee went. So now, you can always get names like Jay said, I'm sure that people hit, but I think every single one of these people are deserving, especially, and some challenging ones as well, because you had a kid like Simone Anderson who switched positions midway through the season. And then you have to reconcile those stats of, well, you were kind of a middle attacker for part of it, you're down Oppo, so it's very tough. I think the committee did a great job.
Here's a question for you, Vinnie, because you're the Almanac of all things volleyball. When is the last time that UCLA only had one player on the first team, second team, or honorable mention all combined?
Ooh, that's a good, if I had to guess off the top of my head, probably that 2015 season. That was the year that they snuck in as the number 8 seed in the conference tournament. It was the year before Micah. Basically, they were doing exactly what they did this year, where it was they had a bunch of young players. They were all reloading and ready to go. But yeah, it's a great question.
Well, I'm going to jump into the Hornets' nest. Two of the guys I was expecting to see, and they actually come from the EIVA. Michael Fisher from St. Francis, because he had that team had some great results early on in this abbreviated season, and he put some really good numbers. And the other team was the NJIT setter Roque Nido. So I'm not trying to stir up controversy. Just those teams, their names stuck out because I was constantly seeing them in the stats as I tried to follow from the West Coast here. So I'm not throwing daggers at Dan like Jay does.
What?
Mine are little toothpicks.
Darts, not daggers. Darts.
Darts. All right.
So, hey, just a fun fact. 2015, nobody from UCLA on the first team, nobody from UCLA on the second team. JT Hatch, honorable mention.
Wow. There you go. Great job, Vinnie.
Thank you. Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to step out for a second because my computer is about to die. I need to get a charger. I feel horribly unprepared. So I'm just going to do a mic drop here and walk out.
Well done, though. That's great.
We're professional on this podcast. So
we can handle it while you're gone.
Well, the question I have for you guys is, and obviously with the shortened season, we didn't get to see everyone, but what are some of the players that you wish you could have seen this season competing against your teams or in your arenas?
I wanted to play Santa Barbara. They were good. I would have loved to play them, if we were fortunate enough to get towards the end or something like that. I mean, we got to play BYU and Hawaii, and I certainly wanted another crack at both those teams. And we played Barton, which I thought would have been in there at the same time. Maybe a little rematch against Penn State if Penn State got through the EVA. But for us, Santa Barbara would have been fun. I think super talented group and well coached, and that was a match that I'm like, hey, I would have won it. So,
yeah, I think along those lines, luckily we got through the bulk of our home season in terms of teams coming in, but I would have liked to have seen Long Beach State and UC Irvine. Obviously, I would have liked to have been 100% healthy, but regardless of that, I like the fight in my dogs. So I would have liked to have seen those teams. They were teams that obviously were pretty highly ranked, but they were also just good and well-coached teams and good players. And having them in your home gym is always an advantage of sorts. So it's probably and I would have liked another crack at Penn State as well, and see what we could have lined up with. But yeah, those are probably the ones.
I would say that to piggy off that, though, is like the matches not including me that would have been interesting is really the Big West Conference. I want to see San Diego, take down possibly Hawaii or San Diego and Santa Barbara. I mean, there's some matches there, to me where it's like in that conference tournament when they would have got into the thick of it where that would have been not to discredit any other conference, my own or anything, but the conference you're looking at where you're like, wow, how do these guys battle it out and who gets the bid when you're done at the end there a little bit? So,
yeah, without question. I mean, how much fun is it on Friday and Saturday nights when you get home from your own match that you just, grab a beverage of choice and then you're on TV or computer land for the next 3 or 4 hours watching fantastic matches. That's I miss that for sure.
But Vinnie, the question was, what team would you have wanted to see this season, being that it was a shortened season in your arena or in your area this year?
Oh, without that, so for me, it's Long Beach State. And the reason I say that is because I still think one of the mysteries of the 2020 season, I will never know, is just how good was Long Beach State? Because you kind of look at their schedule, the way it was set up, it was really heavy. They were about to go in this absolute gauntlet, where you're playing, UC Santa Barbara, you're playing Hawaii, you're playing all these top-notch teams. And with the way the state season wound up with them, they only played 10 matches. 2 of them were against NAIA schools. So for me, there was always this question of they're number 4 in the country. We know they're good, but how good are they? And for me, that's kind of the mystery. I was joking even when the season got canceled. Like, I still don't know how good Long Beach State is. We still don't know going in. But, with that being said, that's a great program. I just would have loved to see where they were stacked up against top just because we hadn't had a chance to see that yet.
Well, throw some more controversy in there. With only 1 loss, Al Knipe, could technically be a candidate for the Coach of the Year, and I won't put you on the spot, Dan.
Yeah, you're not getting anything out of me on any of the other stuff, just so you guys know. Have your speculations.
I'll throw it out right now for Coach of the Year. If I had a vote, which I don't, it has to go. I feel it needs to go to Kevin Ring this year. You talk about UC San Diego. They were a punchline to a joke at the beginning of the season. It was, hey, are they ever going to win a conference match? I mean, that was the maybe not in the coaching circles, but in the volleyball community, that was the question. Like, hey, are they ever going to win a Big West match? They've been in the league now for 3 years. They've yet to win, and they were number 6 in the country. They defeated UC Irvine twice. They had huge wins. I mean, the job that Coach Ring did in building that program, turning things around, and nothing against Rod McLaughlin and the job that he did at UC Santa Barbara this year, but I would have loved to have seen West also do a co this year and recognize the job that Kevin Ring did with UC San Diego.
You mean Rick McLaughlin?
Rick McLaughlin, yeah.
I have not seen that result yet. I've actually stayed away from that. I know who the first and second team are, and I'll mention obviously, but I've stayed away from Coach of the Year, Player of the Year, all this and that, because I want that to be a surprise. However, my 2 vote getters for that are Kevin Ring, without question. You finally, after all of these years, are given the keys to the Porsche, and now you can drive it because you have the license and the scholarship money to compete. Good for you, Kevin. Kudos for your program, and kudos for your administration for sticking with you all these years. My second vote gets Rick McLaughlin. I mean, he did a fantastic job with a lineup that is not as big and strong and powerful as some teams in the country, but man, they were good. And they fought, and they were scrappy, and they were so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 choices for Coach of the Year. If I had a vote, those would be my 2.
Well, I wanted to conclude that just picking a team that I was hoping to see this year for 4 reasons. It's Penn State University. 1 is Coach Pav. Always love seeing him. 2, Calvin Mendy. 3, Brett Wildman. And is it Wildner? Those guys were incredible. Bobby Wilden. Those guys were putting up some solid numbers at each of the pins, and we're going to see them out here and miss the opportunity with our shortened season. But, being undefeated in the EIVA, sorry, Jay, but it's a great team to watch.
Dart.
That was a little bit more of a dagger than a dart, didn't it? Yeah. Well, unfortunately, firstly, you would have seen Pav, because Pav's the man. Love that guy. Secondly, you probably wouldn't have seen Cal Mendy. Cal Mendy was not playing in the recent months. They had Fisher playing on the right side from 6'3" outside hitter, lefty, super good athletic kid, and doing some nice things. And you probably wouldn't have seen Bobby Wilden. He was having some health issues later on as the year went on. And they had Falk Lawton and Wildman as their 2 outside hitters going into midway part of the season. So not to burst your bubble, not to take the dagger and throw it back, but that's what you would have seen.
All right, next question for all you guys is, and I just want to talk about some of the newcomers of the year. I don't want you to pin your favorite because I don't want to put Dan on the spot again. But we know that's going to be coming out, and we had some really good performances. We'll start with Vinnie and not put Dan on the spot, so unless he wants to chime in.
No, I can just tell you there's a handful of guys that certainly were deserving of it. And so it was really a good discussion. But yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's this guy named Kevin Calling from Lewis. I'll drop that one for you. Kevin Calling, Lewis setter, really good hands, big blocker. Ran a really good offense with Tyler Mitchum, and he had Ryan Coonan and Kyle Bouger. They just had great output, and it showed. They're the end of the year results. They were leading the conference, and they're also top 5 in the nation. There you go, Dan. You're welcome. Rob Aspero, send me the check.
I'm going to buy Jay's farm and send it to you just so you know. You know what I mean?
It's a really cheap deal right now. It's really, really good price.
No, we did have some good freshman turnout. Kevin Calling, once again, for my money, he was the top setter this year. Michael Wright of Ohio State also did a really good job as well. A couple others as well. In terms of the newcomers, freshmen, Kyle McCauley of UC San Diego, he really was that great addition that came on in, from, I believe, the JUCO college and really stepped up. Mentioned Camden Gianni earlier this season as a redshirt freshman. Once again, he was putting up fantastic numbers. I think that's a great combination that Antelopes fans have in the future when you talk about Janke and Gianni on their pins. And then, the other player as well that I really, really thought had a very strong season, and liberos never go win newcomer of the year. It's just not going to happen. But Mason Briggs of Long Beach State, I think that he really showed that he's going to be one of the best liberos in this game for the next 3 years.
Interesting. I would agree with Colin. That's a no-brainer. Kid is legit. I would agree with Macaulay. I mean, newcomer of the year. Obviously, he's a junior, transfer, but newcomer to the Division I ranks and did a fantastic job. I would agree with Gianni. I think that was a no-brainer. Kid, obviously, he was a redshirt freshman, but the story behind that kid was fantastic. Here's one for you. Julian Meissner, 6'7", lefty opposite from NJIT. Yeah. That kid is stupid, and I got to see him for the next 3 or 4 years. So that kid was really, really good.
Yeah, the kid we're missing is the Cole Schuler from Loyola. Kid put up some pretty.
Oh, Schlotthauer?
Sure, yeah, he put up some pretty good numbers in conference and was certainly carrying the weight for that Loyola team all year in terms of offensive prowess and everything. And so, he was our MIVA freshman of the year, and so he's a talented kid. You know what I mean in terms of that. And so.
Well, I feel like we've put Dan on the spot for quite a bit, so I'm not going to ask about the player of the year because I think it comes down to two. But we're going to jump to what Vinnie does over at Off the Block, and that's the national awards. So I don't know if that changes the discussion for Dan over there, but every year Vinnie Lopes of Off the Block does this incredible coordination of all the stats and all the top players of the year, positionally and with some other categories. And we've come down to the finalists. There's 3 in each of the categories. I'm assuming it's safe for all of us, hint, Dan, to pick our favorite in each of the categories.
Yeah.
All right. So our first category, first of all, excellent job, Vinnie, of covering the game. I missed those weekly discussions on the Net Live and you being the butt end of all the Conference Carolina and independent jokes.
I still have my Conference Carolina flag that I waved. Sometimes it was upside down and I was waving it, for distress, but I still have the Conference Carolina flag. I should add, I did joke with Barney that I'm going to mail him some limestone for his backyard, so I'll always have the Conference Carolinas with him.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right, let's jump on our first award. It's the Loy Ball Award, which is awards the nation's best setter. The 3 candidates are Oscar Fiorentino of Barton College, Casey McGarry of UC Santa Barbara, and Will Stanley of BYU. Who wants to take a shot at that one first?
Hey, I'll go first. Casey McGarry from Santa Barbara. He's my pick. So I thought with his pieces and Randy moving over to position-wise and the efficiency of their offense and being a little undersized, I thought he was certainly doing things at a high level and had worked himself into that spot.
I would agree, and I don't know why Dan's guy wasn't in there either. The guy from Barton Fiorentino is a really good player, don't get me wrong, but I think Dan's guy was a little bit better than that guy. But regardless, I would agree. McGarry, he's my choice. Smaller, undersized setter, leading the charge of this new wave of smaller setters around the country, and showed what it can look like. And super stoked for that kid. He's a great kid, too. I've coached him years ago at a USA thing.
Yeah, and just Colin did get some votes. Just so you know, all our finalists are voted upon by a nationwide voting committee of media members and coaches. Top 3 are finalists. So Colin did get some votes in there. I voted McGarry number 1, not only what he did offensively, but just think how crazy this is. He was 6th in the nation in digs. Like, as a setter, that is just nuts. He was averaging 2 digs per game.
Awesome.
We'll have to go get you graded, guys. I'm sorry.
The committee missed that, by the way. I'm just going to let you know, Vinnie. I'm throwing a dart right at you. The committee missed it with Dan's guy. You're welcome, Dan.
Yeah, thanks. It's great.
Yeah.
You can send that check to Jay Hoslick in Fairfax, Virginia, by the way.
All right.
I got a follow for you.
Hey, I only got so much stimulus money, guys, until they pass another $1 trillion thing where they're doing checks or whatever.
I guess I'll do this then. Hey, if anyone wants a shout out, email me really quick. I can use the money. So just send me.
TJ Murray.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming.
Honorable mention, AVCA.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna pick Will Stanley, and primarily because 10.74 assists per set, which is third in the nation, led his team to 358 hitting percentage, which is second in the nation. But what pushed me or leans me his way is the fact that he comes back from a season-ending injury in 2019. I always love comeback stories, and he's such a good guy to talk to, and you can see he's focused. He's definitely got the reins on the team leadership-wise, and he's definitely got them all reeled in, and then they bought in. So, and it shows. They were a powerhouse team at the end, and they ended on a 5-set loss. But, man, talk about an exciting weekend of great volleyball in Hawaii. You had some rivalries between former club teammates. Colton Cowell was Will Stanley's teammate. They were jabbering across the net, Rado and Gabi, but in very respectful ways if it can be done, because at the end of that 5-setter, all those guys came to the net, and you can see they just enjoyed that battle of that weekend. So, but Will Stanley has done an incredible job, and he ended this season playing in front of his hometown, and kudos to him this season for putting on the performance he did.
One thing you mentioned this, and I started seeing it last year a little bit more between Long Beach and Hawaii, especially. There seems to be a really tight brotherhood of guys playing around the country that either grew up playing club against each other, or high school, or even through the college ranks. They see each other a few times a year. I think it's really cool to see when teams disregard the net and they're on the same side, and you can see the love and respect they have for each other. I think that's pretty cool. Our sport, as niche as it is, transcends a lot of different barriers, and I really like seeing that kind of stuff. It's very cool.
I'm with you. And so our next category is the Brian Ivey Award, the best opposite in the nation. Our 3 finalists off the block are Gabi Garcia Fernandez of BYU, Angelos Mandelaris of Barton College, and Rado Parapunov of Hawaii. Who wants to take the stab?
So for me, I'll say this is just my projection. I've called this the preview for the National Player of the Year. I think it's down between Rado and Gabi. But I went with Gabi Garcia Fernandez. You look, the serving performance alone they had this year was unprecedented. He had more aces than service errors. I mean, just think how nuts that is for a bomber. And then you add the fact that he was in the top 15 in the nation with 4 kills per game average. He had a career high in attack percentage at 300. Nothing against Rado. I think Rado's going to be great, and he's going to be a pain in the butt for Team USA because he's going to be on the Bulgarian national team. But Gabi Garcia Fernandez got my vote.
Yeah, I think that's – listen, I think that's the right choice for Player of the Year. I think that's the right choice for opposite. I'm going to vote Mandelaris, and here's why. Gabi Garcia, first of all, let's just – I want to talk about that stat before I make my choice. Most coaches would take half as many aces as they have errors. They would look at that as a respectable error-to-ace ratio and be happy with that. To have more aces than error is ludicrous. That's stupid numbers. So, obviously, that kid – far and above, I think, a lot of others in Player of the Year candidate or opposite of the year candidate. My vote's actually going to be for Mandelaris, and here's why. He's on a team that doesn't have a lot of supporting cast. Yet that team did a lot of damage to a lot of different teams this year that they have not done before. That's a one-man wrecking machine. So Mandelaris gets my vote for opposite of the year.
This might be the toughest one, I think, for me out of all of them. I think because Jay brings up a pretty valid point on Angelos. Gabi, unprecedented. I mean, you think about Ohio State back when they won their national championships and Surzins was serving and what he was doing from a point scoring, and Gabi blew that out of the water. You know what I mean? You think about Micah Maha last year and Yoshimoto and their aces per game and what they were doing. Again, Gabi blew it out of the water. So he did an unprecedented statistical thing, and we're not talking about the point scoring. You're talking about the ace. Go on to the point scoring on top of that. That's how many times you got teams out of system. not the aces or anything. And so that just is a whole nother thing. And so, pretty special. And then I thought, certainly Rado is, a challenge for everyone, and Angelos is great. I probably lean a little towards Gabby just because it's some statistical things that I've never seen before in terms of being in that position from opposite. But, I watched Angelos just dismantle Loyola. You know what I mean? I sat there with Jay in the skybox, watched the match, and, nothing against Loyola. They've got some talent, but that kid he'd jump up, look at everybody, and hit the ball here. And they'd send him back. And I'm like, wow, what would that kid do in an environment where he had 3 or 4 horses with him? And Barnes is a good team. They got some good pieces for sure. Do you know what I mean? But there's a hard part where it's like I kind of lean towards Angelos with Jay, but Gabby's probably still my front runner. So,
that's a tough one for me to pick personally. I enjoy all the players, and I haven't seen Angelos, but everything I heard about him, it makes him a legit athlete. I look at his numbers, 4.43 kills per set, second in the nation, hit 412, 11th in the nation, 217 kills in the season, 12th in the nation. The guy obviously is an offensive threat, but I've seen a lot of Gabby, and it's hard for me not to lean his way. I'm biased in that I got to see him play against some international teams in the summer at the NORCECA Champions Cup, and he is freaking the real deal. He's throwing 75-mile-an-hour plus jump serves. He's going against guys like Yolandi. What's his name? The middle blocker for Cuba. He's got intense arm swing at no matter pin he's at or out of the back row. But he's been one of the strongest players that I've seen in the time that I've been following international volleyball. And he's a junior. So
he's going to make a lot of money playing overseas.
Super teams.
Yeah. And speaking of Mandalaris, there's quite a few teams this year that were missing an opposite piece. Imagine if UCLA had Mandalaris on their team.
Yeah.
Oh, are you implying a search soon?
Well, I don't think it's any secret. The kid's reaching out to just about everybody. So
yeah. I've always thrown out the fun hypothetical if college men's volleyball was like basketball and you can make in-season trades, just how comical that would be at times.
Can I go all in and just, because of all the injuries? And no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were I think I was joking with sending you a trade proposal like, hey, are you willing to give up a scholarship for Raymond Barthivian, and cash considerations?
No, I would never do that. My guys are awesome. I love my guys.
Yeah.
All right. Next award, Karch Kirai Award, Best Outside Hitter in the Nation. 3 candidates are Ryan Coonan of Lewis, Colton Cowell of Hawaii, and Davide Gardini of BYU.
Yeah, so this is the award, TJ DeFalco had won it the last 3 years. So this was kind of the first year it felt like it wasn't a foregone conclusion on who was going to win. Well, I guess 2017 you had, and 2018 you had Surzan as well. But for me, I voted Gardini. You look at the numbers, especially beginning of the season that he was putting up. Just a fantastic season all around. And then also a really well-balanced player. He was second in the nation among all outside attackers with a 1.97 digs per game average, and also almost averaged a block per game as well. So just a solid all-around player.
All right. So for me, here's my thought process. Coonan is so far above everybody, but he's also a 4th or 5th year guy, Dan? Am I correct?
5th year, right?
5th year guy. So he's taken some time to develop into that role and that level. And I know he was good as a freshman and sophomore. I'm not taking anything away from that. But he has since developed into a beast. And I think he'll make a lot of money on overseas, and I think the national team be really happy to have him. However, my vote's going to go for Gardini or Cowell, and here's why. Gardini is a second-year player and is already figuring it out. Last year, you could tell there were some moments where you're like, man, that's going to be really, really good in a couple of years. Well, that couple of years turned into next season, and he has really stood out. Now, when you look at the pieces, and I think this is why Will Stanley maybe didn't get my vote for setter of the year, it's easy to be successful when you're not the guy. When you are part of a wheel in which all 6 spokes are really strong and working together and the wheel is just flowing, it's easy to get lost in that shuffle. When you're the only guy on that wheel, the only spoke that's holding the wheel together, like a Mandalaris, that's really tough to be successful. I'm voting for Cal, and here's why. I'm really a fan, and Rob, you touched about being a fan of a good comeback story. Kid was a walk-on in Hawaii, didn't get any scholarship money, smaller, undersized player, does so many little things really well, an emotional spark plug, and he's a Hawaii guy. It's been tough to keep kids on the island and not go to the mainland to play collegiate ball, and he decided to stay home and play for his home team. And I got to give that kid credit for that. The kid's super fun to watch. You know, there's so many undersized players in recent years. And I know that over time that you know, back in the 80s, everybody was small, you know, and then all of a sudden everybody started sprouting up and they're, you know, these 6'7", 6'8" trees that are out there playing outside hitter, which was unheard of back in the day. But there seems to be a growing trend of smaller players that can just play the game all around really, really well. And I liked watching him play, and I like his demeanor on the court. So he gets my vote for outside hitter of the year.
Yeah, we get into some categories here where I've got a couple guys on some things. So, you know, I'm going to vote for Coonan, guys. You know,
yeah, it's the right thing to do.
4-time All-American, MIVA Player of the Year. Every statistical category was a career high this year. Elevated our team. Is the best outside in the country right now. That's my opinion. Gardenia's awesome. Great. You know what I mean? And he's got an opposite on the other side that balances him out. You know, Coonan's got a middle that balances him out. You know what I mean? And so what he was doing with this group and the level he was playing, and he's a captain, you know, he's my guy easily. You know what I mean?
Dan, I had your back. I was going to pick Coonan, but I wanted to hear you chime into the conversation because after experiencing him firsthand, when you guys came out to Irvine, beat us in 5, that was a painful night. But, you know, one of the things I did, one of the takebacks from that night was seeing how talented of an outside hitter Coonan is. And he's going to be on the international level. He's going to be a game changer for USA Volleyball if he keeps developing at the pace that he has. 4-time All-American, hard to beat that. He solid arm swing and just a solid good guy. So, hey, pick your guy. I'm with you on it. Yeah. All right, our next category, the Ryan Millar Award, Best Middle in the Country. We have 4 candidates on that one. Patrick Gassman of Hawaii, Danon or Kofi Jimma of UCLA, Tyler Mitchum of Lewis, and Scott Static of UC Irvine. I'll just say right off the bat, I'm a Static guy. He broke some numbers this year, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll go first on this. Tyler Mitchum. It's not there's a middle blocker award too, and Static's the guy. But Mitchum, the guy's hitting over 500 and almost 3 kills per game. I mean, he's unprecedented offensively as a middle. He changes the game when you watch him attack. And I think I would kind of compare it to last year with Kofi. That's where I thought Kofi was like this juggernaut of an offensive weapon last year in terms of him being set. You know what I mean? And certainly Kofi is still talented, but I don't know that he had the same pace and the way he was doing things this year quite as much as he did the year before when you make that comparison, where I thought Tyler took a whole nother step in terms of, I mean, he had matches where he didn't even have an error for like 3 or 4 matches. I mean, I was ridiculous. So I'm just a fan. I like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm just kind of sitting back watching him. So Tyler would be my guy. So
yeah. And just to hit on that point with Mitchum, just think about the stats. So there was a 6-match stretch where Mitchum had double-digit kills in every single match, and he had a combined 5 errors in those matches. So just insane performance all around, hit 505. I personally, in February, I was lobbying for Mitchum to be the MIVA Player of the Year, to the point where I kind of felt bad that I was kind of discounting Brian Coonan. I was telling people, no, I still think Brian's really good, but Mitchum's just having this great of a year, and we never see a middle, you know, usually win the MIVA Player of the Year, but I thought he was having that good of a season where he could have got some consideration once. So, yeah, so I voted Mitchum personally for this one.
So I've had the pleasure of coaching Scott Static and Tyler Mitchum for a brief moment during the USA stuff. Both of them well deserving of that, and I agree 100% with Rob and Dan what you're saying. They're both fantastic players. I think Mitchum, for me, this year had the edge over Static. However, I am going to vote for Jimma, and here's why. Jimma played every position known to man this year and was the only guy that UCLA could rely upon to put a ball away when they need it. He hit on the outside. He hit in the middle. He hit on the right side. He hit from the back row. I think he may have played libero in 1 or 2 matches at one point as well.
I saw him statting some matches too. So
that's right. He was statting matches. He was playing libero, and he was serve subbing for other people in the whole thing.
Right.
I even think he sold hot dogs up in the
and he was serving as a trader, taping up the players before matches.
That's right. And that's why he's the only UCLA guy on the All-American list. And let's top all that off with international rap star. That kid does a lot. And, Rob, you only had 1 job this morning. That kid's got 18 jobs, and he's successful at just about every single one of them. But, all joking aside, I think all of those guys, to some degree, you could argue for. But I just vote for Jim because I just think there was so much going on and so many roles that he had to take on this year, and they relied upon him, and he was successful in all of them.
Good calls. Good calls. Eric Shoji Award, Best Libero in the Nation. 3 candidates, Addison Enriquez of Concordia, Timothy McIntosh of Sacred Heart, and Gage Worsley of Hawaii.
Yeah, so I'll talk on this one. I really love Worsley. I really love Enriquez. I personally leaned a little toward – I voted Enriquez this year just because I thought that the dig numbers were a little bit higher. But I think it's such a difficult category. In some ways, it's tough to judge on Gage Worsley because there just weren't a whole lot of rallies that he had to dig the ball. Hawaii was just terminating left and right. So, I did Enriquez. But, if Gage Worsley wins, that's super well-deserving.
Yeah, I'd probably lean a little towards Gage. I thought Addison was pretty good with, like Vinnie said. Certainly really had a remarkable year for him and really came alive. But Gage it's the libero position for me, not just digging. So Gage, literally controls all of that and everything that goes on with that and the setting, the flow of the court, the receive lines. He takes 60%. There's a lot of stuff going on that he really just controls a lot, and he's a pretty special player because we talk about this with him before. The kid will run through a brick wall, do you know what I mean, in terms of how he competes, and so he'd be my pick.
In the immortal words of one of my favorite game day commentators, not so fast, my friend. I think Gage Worsley, obviously, having the pleasure of coaching that young man on the USA team years ago, no doubt will become a force to be reckoned with and already is. I've seen him literally strap helmets on, stand in front of international players, and dare them to hit the ball at him. I think Evan Enriquez at Concordia,
Addison.
I'm sorry?
You said Evan.
I'm sorry. Well, that's what I'm just saying. Like the Enriquez clan.
287 of them.
They're like the Molina family in baseball.
There's 48 Enriquez brothers, and all of them fish and take great videos of themselves out in the oceans. But in reality, another great libero and a promising future. I'm going to go with McIntyre at Sacred Heart. McIntyre's following a kid named Eisenberg that they had for years, and that kid should have been in the national team, Jim. He was that good. And McIntyre, they went up 2-0 against Penn State, and he was digging everything in sight. I know their record was not very good. I get that. Had nothing to do with that kid. It had to do with some other stuff going on around the gym in terms of producers that can put a ball away. But that kid dug everything. He gets my vote.
I'm going to go with the Gage Worsley because I can't say I've seen a lot of the Timothy McIntosh. Addison Enriquez did play well for a stretch that I got to see him play. Upset of Grand Canyon and upset of UC Irvine, which was a painful week for me. But, he definitely has a talent, and he was making some great moves, has some really good vision off the block, and can really read attackers well. So, but still, Gage did some incredible things. And, and speaking with Colton Cowell earlier last week, he had said that, Gage Worsley is like his brother Joe at Libero. They just know how to play volleyball. They have such a great knowledge, and they use the skills they've got and can dominate. So,
Yep.
Next award is the Nicholas Sherjan Award, the best non-U.S. born player in D1 and 2. And Vinny, I had a question for you on that one.
Yeah.
Why wasn't Gabby in there?
So this is actually a good question. And initially we had it open to players from U.S. territories, and a lot of feedback that we got from Puerto Rican players and people of Puerto Rican descent were U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
So one of the changes that we made to the award in recent years was we omit Puerto Ricans to recognize that you're U.S. born, you're a U.S. citizen. So that was an inadvertent omission on our part earlier in history, and we corrected that. So yeah, so Gabby was ineligible for this one. He did get a couple votes, but we obviously omitted those votes from the total.
Gotcha.
But yes, great question on that. And for me on that one, you look at
let's say the candidates. They're Davide Gardini of BYU, Angelos Mandelaris of Barton, and Gardini is obviously Italian. Mandelaris is Greek, I believe, or
Greek. Yeah,
and Rado Parapunov is Bulgarian. So make your picks.
Yeah, I did Parapunov in this one. So, and he's like I said, he's going to be a pain in the butt for Team USA to play against. If Bulgaria can ever get back to the Olympics.
All right, I took the Greek guy. That guy was pretty darn good. We've talked about him a couple different times on some different things, and so I think he elevated Barton, got wins that they hadn't got before, and he was the anchor. He was the guy. His numbers reflect that. We talked about where his kills and hitting percentage were and all the things he's doing point-wise, and so I think he deserves that.
Vinnie, over the years, I've given you so much respect because you work your butt off. You know every in and out detail. You're basically an almanac that has every answer. And I would agree with you that Gardini was the best Italian in the country. Not so fast, my friend. Angelos Mandelaris is the best foreign-born guy in the country. That guy would have made any of the teams in the country immediately better. I know there are probably some coaches around the country that wished he was in their gym, and they're probably in the NCAA portal right now. That is the best foreign player.
I didn't get to see Angelos Mandelaris play, so I've got to go with my Big West bias. Sorry, I'm going to go with Rado Parapunov. But it's not to say that Angelos isn't worthy of the pick. If I hadn't seen it, I got to go off numbers. I've seen Rado Parapunov the last 4 years, and it's hard for me to go against him when I know he's been such a solid performer over his entire career here. So, and it's not a knock on any of our candidates, just so everyone who's listening knows. Next award,
my best foreign player.
Steve Shundell Award, Best Passer in the Nation. 2 candidates, Mason Briggs of Long Beach State, Addison Enriquez of Concordia. Actually 3, Gage Worsley of Hawaii. Take a shot, guys.
Yeah, so for me on this one, I voted Gage. One thing I do want to add is, I really hope next year as we move forward with these awards and everything, we really make some partnerships with some of the companies that really provide some of the in-depth data, just so we can really better inform the public on who are the best passers, who do a great job at keeping their teams in system. Because, the public knowledge stats I would like to share, some places only report, the reception errors and the percentage, and that it tells some of the story, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So hopefully as we move forward, we can continue to make some of that data a little bit more public, just so people can get the whole picture of things.
This is a really tough one, and I tell you this because we on the committee, you have some access to Volleymetrics, which gives you all the passing numbers. And in general, like all these guys, have some areas where they're better than the other one, and so it's probably the toughest for me. I think I'm going to go away from the norm of Gage here, and I'm going to lean toward Mason Briggs, freshman coming in, really running the show as a libero. Extremely, good passer and puts himself in a position to take court. And so he's going to be the guy I kind of lean towards this time. So,
yeah, I think that's the reason for me that I go with Mason Briggs. You have a freshman coming in and handling that kind of heat at a young age. There's a couple of positions that when you get to the college level, take a few years to really dial in. And libero, I think, is one of them because you just don't see that heat in your high school and club gym. When you get to the college level, it's just so much faster. And for a kid like that to step in his first year and just be able to act like he's been there forever, that's the reason why I would vote for him. And you know what? You're going to see Gage and Mason go at it with each other with the USA gym for years to come. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I'm going to jump in and say Mason as well, but for other reasons. I look at the impact of that first ball that's being passed, and one thing that's telling is a setter who is basically a backup to an All-American setter could come in and gets an honorable mention this year, and that's Carlos Rivera. So he's the beneficiary of the in-system passing that Mason Briggs has provided. That doesn't even talk about his defense, but the fact that you lose 4 major players from back-to-back national championship team to have your setter be performing that well and running an offense with some no-namers, let's be honest, and you moved your best middle to opposite, and he's still in the discussion. So I'd have to say that the biggest impact player for those guys in the passing award is Mason Briggs.
By the way, this just in, Kofi Jima is actually a car salesman now down the street from my house, just so you know. 79 jobs the kid now has.
Yeah.
3 more awards. Dane Bland Diversity Award, the top NCAA athlete from a minority ethnicity. The 3 candidates: Gabby Garcia Fernandez, BYU; Kofi Jima, UCLA; Tyler Mitchum, Lewis. Who's in?
Yeah, so I'll say this. I went with Mitchum on this one, but I do want to point out something, just how much our game has changed diversity-wise, and it's really reflecting the America that we see every day. I mean, just think about this. You know, it used to, you know, we have 2 African-American players, first-team All-Americans this year. I can't recall a time where we had multiple people, African-American players, be first-team All-Americans. And I just, you know, I love this award because I think it just speaks to how much the game is growing, and you have so many people of different colors now, you know, playing this game. And it's just great to see. So once again, I went with Mitchum, but you can't go wrong with any of them.
Dan?
Yeah. Hey, Mitchum. Come on, it's my guy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
DJ Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, I think Mitchum had a special year and was doing, like Vinnie talked about, like, you know, ultimately when you nominate your players sometimes for postseason, you have to put a 1 or a 2 by, you know, and I got him and Cooney. You want to talk about internal struggles there, do you know what I mean, in terms of 2 guys that are special players, do you know what I mean? So I'd lean towards Tyler. So
I think, you know, we talk about this, the game expanding and growing in regions where maybe it's not been so prevalent before. I mean, just look at now the historically black colleges in the SIAC starting their own conference. I mean, that's 6 teams in one shot out of the gate that are going to be creating an opportunity for players. And I know that maybe it's not going to be in the first or second year where you're going to see a roster entirely African Americans playing, but that doesn't mean that that's not still significant. I am going to vote for Mitchum as well because I know where Mitchum started from, and he has made these incredible strides. Dan has done a fantastic job coaching that kid. McCarthy, his old assistant coach, worked with him extensively. And these are things that when you're a young kid, a young black kid, maybe in a place that doesn't have volleyball as easily accessible, you know, they got players now that they can look at and go, I want to be like that guy. Well, Tyler Mitchum's leading that charge, and kudos to that kid. He's a great human, and he's a good teammate and a good kid. So my vote for him.
Awesome. Hey, we've got to wrap it up here kind of quickly. So I wanted to see, do the last 2 categories. I'll name the candidates and just name them off. We've discussed the majority of the candidates. I feel safe in that we could just go through them quickly. National Block of the Year, Best Front Row Defensive Performance, Luca Berger, NJIT, Patrick Gassman, Hawaii, Scott Static, UC Irvine.
Scott Static, the guy's got 2 blocks per game. There's no way anybody comes close to him. Do you know what I mean, in terms of that? So,
Scott Static.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott Static, without a doubt.
All right. I'm with you there on that one. That was my pick too. So last category, National Serve of the Year, Kyle Bouger, Lewis, Gabby Garcia Fernandez, BYU, Mads Kjed Jensen of UCLA.
Again, Gabby, my boy Bouge, come on, the guy serves well. But Gabby, unprecedented. You know what I mean? So doing things from the service line that we've not seen anybody do at a pretty high level.
More aces than errors, hands down. Gabby.
Yeah, Gabby.
All right, and I'll agree on that one as well. Hey, Vinnie, excellent work this season, even though it was shortened, but you're always doing incredible work, and I've appreciated working with you. And I know the men's volleyball, collegiate community appreciates everything you do. And Dan and
we're missing the Division II Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Who's that guy?
Coonan, come on.
I just want to hear you say it.
I'm throwing love today for my team. Usually I'm pretty guarded. I'm not guarding today, baby.
Yes, my friend. Mandalaris gets my
Well, it's because Ray gave you that shiner, and you've been a lot different since that shiner.
Hey, I think we're good now. Come on.
Hey, I want to thank my panel today, Jay Hossack of George Mason, Dan Friend of Lewis University, and Special Almanac of Collegiate Men's Volleyball and editor of Off the Block, Vinnie Lopes. Thank you guys for all your work this season. Next few days, we have the Player of the Year and the Coach of the Year. Is there a Newcomer of the Year from AVCA coming out in the schedule?
The newcomer already came out, I believe.
I didn't get that email yet.
Yeah, I think they inadvertently announced it on Tuesday. It's Kyle McCauley.
Yeah. That's why I kind of figured. Yeah. So, but hey, Vinnie, aren't you guys doing your stuff tonight? Is that right?
We're doing it tonight on Zoom. So, and then we'll post the Zoom video on the Off the Block website. I have tried to downplay expectations as much as possible about the Zoom event because I came up with the idea like 2 days ago. But it should be a lot of fun. We invited all the award winners, all the coaches, as we announce the winners and everything. So it should be some fun.
Oh, cool.
Hey, Rob, before we get off, can we jump on one more topic for like 4 minutes and then we can go?
Yeah, that's up to you.
I gotta go in about 5, but I think it's relevant. I think we had shared some information between the few of us, and it's just like the landscape of men's volleyball as we move forward, and you're seeing some media stuff go through about some conferences making this charge for cutting down sports, being below 16 on the equivalency, and then you're seeing the reaction back from all these Olympic sports, which I certainly think is good. I think you need those. It's really neat. If you saw the letter that came across, it's not just the AVCA, but it's all these organizations: swimming, diving, wrestling, lacrosse. And so I think the fact that all these sports and all their leaders of their organizations have got together to kind of say, hey, hold on a second, let's evaluate this and look at this. And certainly there's individual institutions that are challenged by budgets. And we saw Urbana go under and we lose a program, but that wasn't because men's volleyball just left. The whole school left. I don't think that's done. But at least you see this thing come out by these conferences, and then you see all these organizations kind of say, hey, wait a minute. So the fact that there's some things in place that are like at least already, boom, on top of it fast, I think that's a good thing. So
I would agree, and I'll piggyback quickly. I know we're running out of time. The fact that football has 85 scholarships is absolutely redonkulous. They've got 4 guys deep on scholarship money on full rides at some of the big programs. 4 guys deep. Imagine if we had 24 scholarships. It would be ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying football is not deserving of having, everything it does. I know it creates lots of revenue. But 85 scholarships, really? Can we not sacrifice a few of those so that we can save the sports that are creating opportunities for everybody else in your school to participate and create a hype around instead of football? I have a hard time giving any sympathy to football. I just don't.
Right. Well, and especially I want to add as well, for most of these schools that are non-Power 5, student revenue is still, and tuition fees are still one of the big driving factors for the athletic budget. I can speak, for instance, when I was at Ball State University, $600 a year went straight to the athletics department on my tuition, zero state. So, I also want to remind people, as you see this come out, and you may say, oh, well, it's 5 conferences, the only school that has a men's volleyball team in it is Ball State. They're well protected because a lot of it's alumni funding. Any decision like this will have ripple effects across the country. So it's important that we pay attention to things like this and really make a stand early before it's too late.
Yep.
Well, excellent call. Thank you for sharing that, Dan. I didn't know if you had enough time to do that, but I will definitely clip that and put that on social media immediately, because that's the kind of stuff I was hoping to get from our conversation through text yesterday. So, hey, again, everyone, thank you so much. And remember, go and support the cause. Do you have I saw the email, but I didn't get the exact website they had for that information on that movement that's trying to get started by that Power 5 conference?
Yeah, I don't have it either. So,
all right. I'll post it in the comments in the description because I have the email. So
back in the quarantine, baby. Here we go.
All right, we're back in quarantine.
Cover me, I'm going in.
I'm in.
Here we go. We're out. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye, guys.
I'll stop recording.